Welcome once again to What Retirement Means to You with financial advisor Jerry Means. He's the president and founder of the Means Financial Group, and I'm Spike Spengel. Jerry Means, how you doing, buddy? You looking good.
I'm doing great, Spike. You as well.
Oh, thank you very much. What's on your mind this week? What do you want to cover?
Well, I thought we would just talk a little about the wave of 2040.
Oh, yeah, the retirement wave. Some incredible numbers. In fact, we talked about it on your weekly radio show. We know currently there's about 58 million Americans who are age 65 today in the United States. In the next 15 years, how many more are we looking at?
It's going to be about 80 million, so 20 million more than today.
20 million more folks. It's unbelievable. These numbers came from the Census Bureau. The largest influx of those turning 65 at any time in U.S. history, and I also want to say world history. And what do we need to do about it? How do we need to prepare for this? It makes me think of supply and demand. You know, the more supply there is of folks who need retirement help, the demand, there's going to be a lot of stress on things like long-term care facilities, doctor care, even downsizing of our homes. So let's dive into it and get into some of the things we need to think about. In the next 15 years, one of the first questions, how does somebody know if they're saving enough? What is a number we need to be thinking about if we're retiring in about 15 years?
Well, a good rule of thumb is about 70 to 80% of your current income. But again, that's just a rule of thumb. What we really need to do is sit down, look at what expenses are going to be in retirement. We need to account for things like health care. We need to look at, okay, if you're in retirement for another 20 years, 30 years, you're probably going to need another car somewhere down the road. The house might need another roof, right? You have to look at some of those things people often don't think about. They just look at the mortgage, utility, groceries, the mug. We talk about that all the time.
I like that.
The acronym mug. But there's other expenses that can creep up on people. So planning is going to be crucial. Like you said, supply and demand. So healthcare costs are going to be extremely expensive. So making sure that you're funding, you know, maybe HSA accounts.
Oh, yeah.
Don't overlook those. That can be a great thing to look at. Long-term care, you know, whether it's for home health care in the house or for skilled facility care, having some type of plan for that is going to be crucial because, you know, when I started in the business, it was about $40,000, $50,000 a year in one of those facilities. Today, we're seeing them $70,000, $80,000 a year. So 15 years from now, not only are you going to have inflation, but you're going to have 20 million more retirees. And so with that, you know, those places are going to get pretty crowded and it's going to get expensive, supply and demand, right?
In fact, what were you talking about? Didn't you see a place pop up recently that now we are starting to see facilities being built, but I just don't know if there's going to be enough. And when that supply goes down, that means they'll be able to charge whatever they want to. With a 5, 10, 15-year ramp up, is this a kind of solution we could lock in now, or do we just have to wait another 20 or 25 years to see if we need to go into a long-term care facility?
Well, health buys those type of plans. We've talked about that before. Money pays for them, but your health buys it. So many people will come in and say, well, you know, we just seen my dad go through this process and go through the nursing home and seen how expensive it is. And so we think we need some type of coverage. And I start asking questions, and well, maybe they've had a heart attack or a stroke or some type of illness, and they don't qualify health-wise. They're ready to pay the premiums or to get into the plan, but they're not qualifying health-wise. So if you're out there and you're healthy and you're concerned about long-term care, don't wait till later. Go ahead, try to design a plan today, and we can help you with that.
Another thing is 5, 10, 15 years from retirement. Obviously, we're still saving into things like retirement accounts of 401ks, 403bs, 457s. Is this a time when we want to continue to be aggressive with what kinds of funds we're choosing, or the opposite? Are we starting to take the risk off right now while we've got a little bit of time before that retirement happens?
Well, we still need to have some risk in the portfolio because we got to account for inflation. You know, just at a 3% inflation rate, you're going to need twice as much money in 24 years. So $100, something that costs $100 today at a 3% inflation rate in 24 years will cost $200. So you're losing half your purchasing power. So your plan has to account for that. You know, so looking at inflation in your plan is always important. So what we do is we kind of segregate money into 3 different buckets. We've got the reserve bucket for emergencies, things that you didn't foresee, but you know you have that cash there to get to it right away if you need to. Then we like to design that income plan. And inside that income plan, we have tools that are inflation adjusted and that can guarantee income for the rest of your retirement. Then we have that growth bucket to help kind of offset inflation. In case we do see hyperinflation, who knows, like I'm talking about 3% rates, we've seen in recent years much higher rates than that. It's gotten a little bit better under control, but as we were talking before the show, you don't really see it at the grocery store.
Yeah. So
where they get some of these numbers, I feel like they kind of cherry pick. I feel like we still have some pretty steep inflation out there, higher than 3%. Mm-hmm. So going down the road, what if we see 5 or 6% inflation rates? You know, you really have to account for that. So that's why it's important to still have a growth bucket in the market with some level at risk that the client is comfortable with. But we don't want to have the income bucket in the market, in my opinion. There's other tools that we can use, things like annuities that can guarantee lifetime income.
If you are somebody, a viewer out there who's going to be turning 65 sometime between now and 2040, a good time to get started on a review, especially a portfolio review. Tell me how it works, though, with, let's say, a retirement account, somebody is still working. Are you, as an independent financial advisor, able to look at their 401k and possibly give them suggestions? Or do they have to wait until they're closer to retirement, roll that money out, and then you can help them?
Well, if they're over age 59 and a half, most 401k plans or pre-tax plans have something called the 59 and a half in-service rollover rule, which allows them to take money out of that 401k, roll it into an IRA so that they can be better diversified. They can buy things like income generating annuities. Inside that 401k, they have 30 or 40 different investment options, and they're not always the best options out there. A lot of them are target date funds, things like that. But outside of that plan, they've got a whole universe of vehicles that they can be using. If they're under age 59 and a half, we still will meet with clients and try to help them figure out what's the best options within their plan, because we know down the road they may need our help. And so we're trying to help them now, knowing that down the road maybe they come back and we're able to help them make that adjustment. Also, if there's old 401ks, if there's old 401ks out there, for sure you should be looking at rolling those over so that you can diversify.
Yeah. We talk about the on-track retirement review. But I think also something I want to couple in there is the written financial plan. So the on-track retirement review, any of you can reach out. The phone number is going to come up on the bottom of the screen. We're happy to do that for you. Number one, what are some of the things that you will review for somebody? And when does the complimentary written financial plan, when does that get started?
So if someone comes into our office, it's a no cost, no obligation consultation. You sit down with us. We want to find out what your retirement picture looks like. So we're going to look at what kind of fees are you paying. We're going to design a written income plan, and we present that in either the second or third meeting, depending on some of the things that we dive into. We're going to look at your long-term care plan. What kind of coverage do you have, or what do you have in place in case something happens? And we want to look at your the tax management of your portfolio. And we do all of that, no cost, no obligation. You come in, we do a fact finder, we sit down, we get to know you, you get to know us. In a second meeting, we can present some solutions. And then maybe in a third meeting, we can dive a little bit deeper into that. And often people become clients, but what we're really looking to do is just leave people better than we found them. So if you give us a call, 844-878-1293, you can get a second opinion. And remember, you can't get a second opinion from the people that gave you the first opinion. So give us a call.
Call that phone number right now, or you can scan the QR code as well if you'd like to. Open up your phone to the camera function, point it at this black and white box over here, and just click on it. You can schedule your own appointment right there. We'll get you started on your own on-track retirement review, leading your way in an appointment or two to your free written financial plan from the team here of the Means Financial Group. More with Jerry Means right after this.
I was like most kids. I wanted to be, law enforcement or fireman or baseball player, of course, that sort of thing. But growing up, even at an early age, my grandfather was a big influence on me. He was kind of the monarch of the family that everyone went to. And if they had questions, they always went to my grandpa. And I was the oldest grandson. And I noticed that during the holidays, we would be at his house, and he had 2 living rooms. And one of the living rooms he always stayed in, and everyone else kind of gathered in the other room. And he was reading the Wall Street Journal and watching the stock market and, taking a look at where things were and talking to me about politics. We just had a really good relationship, and I took an interest in investing. So he taught me how to read the Wall Street Journal when I was 13 years old. So if you can imagine, I went to school, I knew more about investing than most of my teachers did. I knew what bonds were, what equities were, how the market worked. I still wasn't planning on getting in that line of work. It just was interesting to me. It was kind of a bonding time with my grandfather. And then fast forward into my early 20s, I got a phone call from a financial advisor that worked with my grandfather, and he said, "Hey, we're looking to recruit, young guys that might want to get in the business, and your grandfather said to give you a call." And once they showed me what they did, I thought, this seems like it would be a good fit for me. And 25 years later, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary in the business, so it was the right move for me.
Welcome back to What Retirement Means to You with financial advisor Jerry Means, founder of the Means Financial Group. A retirement wave is happening in the next 15 years. By 2040, over 80 million Americans will turn 65. What do we need to do to prepare ourselves for that? And I think one of the big questions is, how do we make sure that we don't outlive the money that we're saving for retirement? With a little bit more time to think about it, if we're still in our working years, how do we make sure, Jerry?
Well, I think that begins with stress testing the portfolio and having some type of written plan. And when I say stress test, that we have software programs that we can input data, show adjustments, show inflation adjustments, and see how long that money will last. And we've done that for some clients with their existing portfolios when they've came in. And according to the program, they have maybe a 67% chance of not running out of money. And we want to get that number higher, right? So we want to keep tinkering with it, putting in different models, and we want to get that as high, as close to 100% as we can. I always tell people, if you got onto an airplane and the pilot comes across and says, "Hey, skies are blue, the sun's shining, we've got a 67% chance of landing okay." I'm nervous, I'm wanting to get off that plane. If he comes on and says, "Hey, we have 98%, 99% chance," I'm feeling a little bit better about that. Again, we want to get it close to 100 as we can, but sometimes it's hard.
I am running off that airplane if it says only 70% chance.
That's right. So it really comes, that's part of the written plan, is we're going to sit down and say, where are you at right now? Where do we want to go? And how do we get there? And that's really what the written plan is. We're going to say, okay, we're going to use these tools, and it's all going to be right there for the client to see. And what's nice about it is, I always say financial planning is not an event, it's an ongoing process. So we can come back to that portfolio on our reviews, and we can re-stress test it again and make sure that we're staying on track. That's why I like to call it the on-track review, so that people can sit down, really see that written plan.
And so important today. Like I said, so many people turning 65 by 2040. We want to make sure that you are on track for where you want to go in retirement. So talked a little bit about 401ks, 403bs. You can help review those. What other kinds of things would you be looking at for somebody to help them be on track in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, we keep hammering the income plan. So let's talk a little bit about that. We like to use fixed index annuities with income riders inside of our written income plan. The reason for that is because it's like building your own personal pension plan. You can get lifetime income even if the account goes to zero. Now, our goal is to still keep growing the account, but as they're drawing off of it, even if it goes to zero, the insurance company still has to keep paying that paycheck every single month as long as you're living. I don't know if there's no investment vehicle in the market that can guarantee that, right? You can do these projections, the 4% rule. I like to call it the 4% myth because I don't really feel like it holds water anymore. It's really just kind of an old strategy that was designed or that became popular in a higher interest rate environment. But if you put your money into the market, to get a 4% withdrawal rate and not run out of money, you're looking at 7-8% almost every year that you have to get a return. And then you have to figure out the taxes on top of that. With the annuity, even if the account does go to zero, you still got the paycheck there. Now, there's different types of annuities. They're not all created equal. So that's my job, to sit down with the client and show them how we're doing our research and why we're coming up with the annuities that we're doing. And I see a lot of advisors honestly shy away from the word annuity. I don't know why, because I think they're great vehicles. I had a potential client come into the office last week, and he said, "Jerry, I'm not opposed to annuities, but I've heard some bad things about annuities. Why is that?" So I got on my whiteboard and I basically drew, there's 3 types of annuities. Now there's more than that. There's like spin-offs, but I wanted to give them the basics, kind of like a 101, right?
Yeah.
So I said, number 1 is a fixed annuity. It works kind of like a CD. You can buy a 3-year term, 5-year term. Maybe it's paying 5.5%. At the end of that term, the money's liquid. You also can pull 10% of the account out each year. That's another big myth, is that they're illiquid. There's charges if you get the entire contract out before the end of the term, but they do have liquidity features where you can get 10% of it out, or if you need nursing home care, terminal illness, things like that, that will trigger an out where you can get the money out of there if you need to for those types of emergencies. So they're illiquid in the sense that you can't just put it in there and yank it out without paying a charge. But I showed him that and he said, well, that sounds pretty good, and the rates are a little bit higher than what the banks are paying. On the other end of the spectrum is a variable annuity where it goes up and down with the market, but it has a death benefit of at least the amount that you put into it. Problem is, it's very expensive. They have what's called an M&E fee, around 1.25%, admin fees, mutual fund fees, rider fees. Not uncommon for someone to be paying 3 to 4% in fees and not even realize it. If they lose money and they find out they're paying 3 to 4% fees they weren't aware of, they might not like annuities.
So, I mean, if the market goes down because it's based on whatever index they've selected, it's a like a security then with all of these extra costs on top of it.
Correct. And so I feel like that's kind of where people start bad-mouthing annuities if they have an experience like that. But in the middle, there's a hybrid called a fixed index annuity, and it's fixed because it's principal protected. You can't lose any of your principal. But instead of giving that fixed interest rate like the CD or the short-term fixed annuity, they're getting interest linked to a stock market index.
Gotcha.
So if the S&P goes up 12%, maybe it has a 9% cap. That's the most that you can make. If the market goes down, you get a 0 for the year. So you don't lose anything. You keep all of the money that you put in, your principal protection, plus the money that you've earned in previous years. And you can get into those products without any fees at all. But if you want a lifetime income rider, you might pay somewhere between 0.5%, 1%, somewhere in that ballpark to get guaranteed lifetime income. So you're still kind of participating in market growth up to a cap with no downside risk, and you got lifetime guarantees on the back end of it. Tell me what's wrong with that.
And so the no downside risk is what you pay for not getting the full amount on the index. So let's say it goes up for 10% of the year. You'll get, a percentage of that, or if it goes beyond 12%, it's like, oh, it's capped off and only the insurance company gets to keep what's over that.
That's not exactly how it works.
Please help me. Yeah, I want to make sure on that.
There's a formula for it. Without getting too much under the hood or how the sausage is made, right? The insurance companies aren't keeping the difference. They're buying options on the S&P 500. They're also have money linked to the 10-year Treasury, things like that. So that's a big misconception. It's like, oh, the market went up 20, I only got 9. They kept 11%. That's not exactly how it works. But what the client needs to understand is they don't have the downside risk. The insurance company's bearing the risk. If the market goes up 12, 15, they're going to get 9. If it goes up 8, they get 8 because they didn't exceed the cap. So it's a pretty good deal. If you look at the S&P 500, what has it averaged over the last 30 years? 8%, somewhere around there. So having a 9% cap's not that bad.
Nice. So what about if somebody has a tool like this that they got in the last 3 or 4 years, or if they're not sure if it's working for them? Do you mind reviewing them, or do they just have to go back to the person where they started with that tool, or they contact the insurance company? Can you help review what somebody's currently using?
Yeah, and that's part of what we do on our on-track review. So if you call the number 844-878-1293, we will schedule what's called our on-track review. We do that no cost, no obligation. And if you have an annuity or you're thinking about buying an annuity, we can sit down and review that with you, and we can explain the ins and outs of that product. I've had clients that have come in that only bought an annuity 3 or 4 years ago, but because we've seen a spike in interest rates, we're able to get them out of that outdated annuity into a current annuity, get them a better interest rate. Now, it doesn't always make sense. That's why we sit down and do an evaluation. But as part of that on-track review, we're going to look at your tax situation. We're going to do some tax forecasting or some things that we can help you with. We're going to look at long-term care. What is your plan for long-term care? What kind of fees are you paying? Are you in one of those variable annuities? What are the fees? Or maybe you're just in a stock market portfolio. What are those fees? And we're going to look at a written income plan, and we're going to look at your estate plan. What kind of estate plan do you have in place? We do all of that, no cost, no obligation. 844-878-1293. You have nothing to lose. Give us a call.
Call that phone number right now. We'll get you started on your own on-track retirement review, leading you on the way to your own no-cost written financial plan. More of what retirement means to you with Jerry Means right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter, the one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back. You are here with financial advisor Jerry Means of the Means Financial Group. As we're preparing for retirement, a large wave of folks here in the United States are going to be turning 65 in the next 15 years, over 80 million Americans. It's going to put a lot of pressure, I think, on things like our medical care systems, even real estate and downsizing for homes. But here's an idea. If you're in your 30s or 40s and you're already an attorney, maybe you might want to also look into becoming an estate planning attorney. We're going to need a lot of legacy planning in the next 15 years.
That's right.
Is this something to think about, though, if you're 50, 55, 60? Or is this something that we wait for a little bit later?
Well, I think the sooner you can do it, the better. I really believe that everyone needs to have certain documents. I think everyone should have a will, durable power of attorney for finance, a healthcare directive, kind of like what is your last moment wishes. But an estate plan is more than documents. Some people need a trust as well. And reasons for a trust, maybe they have a spendthrift child, right? And they want to control the assets. You know, maybe Jimmy's going to buy a Corvette so he looks good on his way to Vegas, right? To spend all of the money. Sometimes people want to kind of control that after they're gone and make sure that, you know, their life savings.
Maybe you have 2 boats and 3 kids.
Yeah.
Who gets what?
That's right. That's right. But basically, you know, there's also other reasons for help for the trust. Maybe the kids have a disability and they can't manage the money themselves, but you want to make sure they're taken care of. So that can be a good reason to have a trust. So it's always good to have a conversation whether they need a trust or not. But those other 3 documents, I feel like everyone should at least have. Like a will doesn't avoid probate, but it can kind of catch some of the things that you don't have beneficiaried. But estate planning can also be passing that wealth on in a more tax efficient way. So some of the things that you can do while you're living so that there's less of a burden on your kids with the inheritance tax, we can look at those things as well. Life insurance. Life insurance is one of the most underutilized tools in the IRS code. There's an author of a book called The Ticking Tax Time Bomb. His name is Ed Slott, and he's pretty popular in our industry. And he talks about that, how life insurance is one of the most underutilized tools in the IRS code, because if it's properly structured, it's tax-free. And I've said before on the show, pennies buy dollars. So if you're going to leave your kids an IRA, let's say it's $1 million IRA, well, you're not leaving it just to them. You're leaving it to Uncle Sam, right? And they have 10 years to liquidate that account. So they're going to have to pay some taxes in that first 10 years. But if they buy life insurance, maybe now you take some of the money out of the IRA while we're in the lowest tax bracket that we're probably ever going to see, pay the taxes on it, fund a life insurance policy. $1 buys $5, right? And it's tax-free that they can leave to their heirs. So life insurance can be a great estate planning tool that I think is often overlooked.
I love the idea, but yeah, sometimes it's hard to just talk to somebody about life insurance. Oh my gosh, they're pitching me something, they're selling me something. But it's creating a lifestyle, maybe for your spouse, the kids, for the next generation. And with a smaller amount, sometimes being able to double it up, triple it up, quadruple it, an amazing tool. But I also want to make sure that you're not just being sold something. So if the public is out watching the program, what kind of questions should they ask to the professional sitting across from them about what their business lifestyle is like? I mean, if it's a life insurance person, they're going to talk about life insurance tools. But you're an independent financial advisor here talking about insurance, annuities, taxes. How does the public know who they're working with?
Well, first of all, it just starts by asking the advisor, right? You know, are you a fiduciary advisor? Are you insurance licensed only? As you said, if they're only insurance licensed, every solution looks like an insurance product, right? And there are great vehicles out there that we can use, but you still should have some money in the stock market. We have managed portfolios for that as well to help manage their risk. But they should just start by having that conversation with their advisor and say, hey, are you a fiduciary advisor? What kind of products do you offer? What kind of services? Are you independent?
Services, yeah.
You know, are you independent or are you captive? You know, meaning you can only sell certain products for certain companies. So just asking that question. They also should always look at their Better Business Bureau report. Are they an accredited business? Look at their Google reviews. You know, I invite people to look at my Google reviews.
You on Yelp? We find Jerry Means on Yelp.
I'm sure
he was
we
good.
are.
He brought us coffee. We had a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm sure we are. I'd have to ask my office administrator about that. I don't know. I know that we have lots of Google reviews, though, because I read all of those because they're important to me. But you should do that. You should do a little bit of investigation when you're working with someone, or if you're thinking about working with someone. We encourage you to do that. What we do if people come in is I go through all of that in the first meeting. Who am I? What are we about? What is our practice like? We're a family practice. But we invite you to give us a call, 844-878-1293, and we offer what's called our on-track review. We want to make sure that you're on track to retire when you want, and if you're already retired, we want to make sure that you stay retired. And we'll talk about things like the aging population and the stress on certain systems like Medicare. We want to make sure that you're taking the proper steps on your Social Security. You know, are you planning for Social Security in the correct way? We can do an analysis for you to help you determine when is the best time to draw your Social Security. Should you draw and your spouse not draw, or vice versa? We're going to look at what is your long-term care situation. Do you have some type of plan for longevity if you do need some kind of care in your home or in a facility? We want to look at the fees that you're paying. You know, if we can shave some fees off of your account, that's going to help your portfolio grow and last longer. We want to have a written income plan, and we want to make sure that you have an estate plan. So give us a call. We will do all of that, no cost, no obligation, 844-878-1293.
I really appreciate all of those different things. And of course, it starts with a first meeting, but oftentimes a second meeting, and then maybe even implementation to a third meeting. This sounds a lot more like a process than it is about selling a product, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Folks, thank you so much for watching today's program. You can get started on your own on-track retirement review, which includes everything that Jerry was talking about, leading to your written financial plan at no cost to you. Make sure that you've got all of your bases covered here. Got a lot of folks turning 65 in the next 15 years. If that's you, make sure that you get your plan started right now. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week.